Hey folks, I've been behind in my videos on this work here, but I've been just slammed with stuff. I got a few videos I made yesterday, maybe 3 short ones, but I didn't get around to posting them. We got family up here and stuff, and shit, I've been rushing like crazy to do a million things and helping people and stuff. But you probably see these other videos. It shows this where I used a step drill to clearance out where my 2 back main studs stick up. They don't hit the oil pan, so that's good. I did a little straightening the oil pan rail with a block of wood. I had this tipped over on the table here and worked that with a block of wood. That's not too bad. I'm not really such a fan of this Mylodon pan, even though they cost $660 friggin' dollars. Senseless. The whole system really is kind of shit. Like, I get that, if I wasn't a cheap fucker, I'd probably buy, a good aluminum setup. But at the time, I was pretty poor. And this was as cheap as I could get into one of these swinging pickups to keep from damaging my stuff. I would not want a better system. The system in principle works good. It's just the materials they give you isn't that great. Like the stock pans have a downward dimple in here and all these gaps that help stiffen the rail. This doesn't have it. This stuff seems to be a fairly soft metal. Like, you can get different grades of steel, obviously, and this stuff bends super easy. But just beyond even that, I think I'm going to get a set of the Mancini support rails that are like 3/8 or 3/16 thick steel that goes over these holes and you bolt through it. It's like a plate that helps it be stronger and clamp down tighter without wobbling every bolt hole out. But the pickup leaking situation that's a pain in the ass too. Now, of course, Comp Wedge helps me, tells me what he does, and I'm gonna dump this secret out, is to see your big block in there. That's a pain in the ass to get down in there. It does actually fit, but it's a pain in the ass. Now that has holes in it. Look back at my other videos for where I opened that up inside with the burrs to make it a little more contoured for flow. Let me get a pointer. Let me get a pointer here. This big block is machined perfectly flat on one side, and it has the female thread holes through it, and the pan has 2 big holes in it. So Comp Wedge told me to silicone this face here, and if you can see the little bead, I'll give you the number 1 instead of 0.5 there. So I siliconed that side of it. That should cure a lot of the leak, because O-rings or whatever else just doesn't do shit. Now on this side, you got a couple fancy washers. Now this washer came with the kit. They don't tell you actually what to do with it. Of course, I got this kit like 20 years ago, so This washer I had to dig out of the parts bin and actually step drill it out so it fit, and then each washer had to be ground flat on the edge to miss this weld, because that would push it up, and actually bent this washer originally. Now that I've ground some clearance out of it, it fits flat. But these big washers help spread the load and pinch that block up to the steel. So that should cure the leaking between the steel and escaping around the block. However, the other factor is there's no real, this is where the seal is made on an AN fitting, right here on this face. So if you don't have that mated down, bam, it's gonna leak. Now inside, that's not an AN fitting, it's like a straight fitting of some type or whatnot, but it's like a bulkhead fitting or some shit. I look back, you can see it. I showed you how I radius the intake side of this pickup. But when you screw those threads into the block, now they're not tight because you have to clock this to fit your hose, and then you jam it with this washer, or not washer, but the jam nut. And this guy just jam nuts in. This one should be fairly tight, but so I also ended up RTVing. I cleaned them with starting fluid, which usually cuts through oil really well. I cleaned the threads on this guy and in the hole pretty good. And I actually RTV'd the threads on this going in to use like some type of thread sealer, obviously as a thread sealer. Because if this isn't tight, even if you jam nut this down, any oil is going to be able to weep into those threads and it's going to eventually come out somewhere. So then I actually, RTV'd the bottom side of the washer, which I don't know if that'll do jack shit. It might, but I don't know. I'm assuming maybe this will all stop it. Time will tell. But this annoying drip from the AN fittings are great. They don't drip because they just, bam, they seal right on this wedge. But this setup, man, wow, leaky annoyance. The copper washer helped for the drain plug because that would drip all the time. They give you a chintzy nylon piece of crap that fucking disintegrates instantly. But the copper washer, I got that from like Advanced Auto or O'Reilly's, wherever. It just, that crushes down good and works great. But yeah, so that's my new go-to standard on this. So, and I said I didn't remove this rear main because I don't think that was leaking. But we're going to see. It looked pretty well done when I peeled it and cut it. And I'm pretty sure this just, obviously, you can tell these stock pans get, windage trays get beat up and they flex and shit. But it should, this should come out okay now, I'm guessing. Now, I got another project going here. I got to flip the engine over and get to that one, and then I'll do a little video on that too. Later.